Good morning and welcome to the 2021 Lecture and Masterclass series here at Northern Vermont University. This morning we have the first of a three-part series with DJ Taz Rashid. Taz and I have worked together all over the country for the past several years, and I've always admired his story and his process, so I'm really excited to have him share that with you here today. Welcome, Taz.
Hey, Tim, man, it's so good to see you. And seeing you just reminds me of all the amazing memories since 2015 or 2014. I've been on the road with you and Wanderlust and all the festivals. And man, wow, like we were just saying before the call, it feels like ages ago, but it's been obviously like, a year and a half or whatever. But man, good time. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll share deep into how I, got into like the festival world. And what's up, everybody, YouTube or wherever you're chiming in on. My name is Taz Rashid. I'm currently in Florida with my family, but I am from Chicago. And as Tim said, this is a three-part series. This first one, we're going to really just kind of go into a little bit of my story around how I got into this. I didn't like go to school for music. I wasn't trying to get into the music business. I was quite opposite. I was just like going into the business world, and I'll show more about that. But I'll share a little bit about how I ended up in this world and now fully producing music. If someone asks me like, hey, what do you do? I can comfortably say I'm a full-time musician, music producer, DJ. And that's all I have to say. I don't have to say a million other things. And I'll explain to you why I just said that, because I've done a million other things to get to this point. And it's important to look at that journey. So before that, I do want to share a little quick video. So you guys, just because most of you probably don't know who I am and stuff, and it's all good. I just want to share this quick little video, just so it's like a 1-minute video clip to show you just kind of like what I've been doing. And I'm going to share my desktop here, and this will actually work right here. This is actually a YouTube video on YouTube, so you're seeing it on YouTube. So you should be able to hear the sound. Hey everybody, DJ Taz Rashid here. What gives me great joy in life right now is playing music at celebratory, mindful events. Communities are gathering, promoting each other's wellness all around the world, and sharing the music to really give people that energy that they're seeking. To live more fulfilled lives and help each other out. I hope to see you at one of these events. All right, so super short video, just to give you a glimpse around what I've kind of been doing for the past 6 years from a DJ and performance perspective. And you're probably like, why are all these people doing yoga or like meditating? So I work in like a very, I would say like a niche world, which is fitness, yoga, meditation. But the cool thing about this world is that they love music, all right? They absolutely love music in everything that they do. And I've been, been pretty lucky to be able to travel around the world. I've been on every continent except for Africa and Antarctica. Not many gigs happen there. But just like, it's a scene that's like all over the world. It's a global scene, and they have festivals and things like that. So I'll share a little bit more about how I got into such like, I guess it may look like a weird world. Like, what's that all about? Like music, he's DJing for like yoga classes and stuff like that. But so I'm going to start sharing this like PowerPoint presentation so you can kind of like get a little idea. So and we'll kind of go through it. And if you guys have any questions, I think Tim's going to like feel them off to me a little bit later so we can kind of like get into, but feel free to ask me whatever you want. So okay, so my main thing right now as a musician that I'm really proud of is that I actually have some decent numbers that's going out there, like it's like why am I up here speaking, so I've done some things to actually like get an audience. And as a musician, that's our whole goal is to, get people to actually hear our music. Um and there are different goals. Obviously, you may write for, film, or you're scoring music for commercials or whatever, and that can all happen. And if you're going to be a musician, most chances are that will probably happen if you follow like certain methods and getting your music out there. But for me, what happened was, as I was traveling and growing, my listeners were actually like paying attention to what I was doing. So I realized like I need to start producing music, and I've been playing guitar and piano forever. And so I actually like learned computer program. I use a DAW, which is like a computer software, a workstation. I use Ableton, and I produce music. So I've been putting music out since 2015. And right now around, I have like if you're on Spotify, you see these numbers like around 220,000 or so monthly listeners, which is for me, that's fantastic. It supports me and my family. Obviously there's musicians that are getting like millions and millions of, monthly listeners and things like that. And it's great. So like I can genuinely say I'm living this role where I am a musician and I'm getting music out there and people are listening to me. Um, around 34,000 followers around the world, which is it's not crazy again, but it's really great. And roughly around um, 1 million or so streams a month, which is which is for me again, it's fantastic. I love that, and it's growing. And as I was sharing before, like I got into music like super early. That's me like back in third grade, uh, playing piano. I just want to share a little bit about my story right now, just so you can get an idea of like how I kind of doing what I'm doing. So thank God my mom and family, like they took me to piano classes because they saw that I love to like play the keyboard, and that's me playing the guitar. And I learned, so my main instruments were piano and guitar from the get-go.
Hey,
um
Taz, we're not
yeah.
seeing your screen.
Oh, you're not seeing my screen. Okay, thank you. Oh
Yeah,
shoot.
sorry about that. Just
Oh.
realized you're referencing it.
Okay. So you guys got to just see my face the whole time. All right, cool. Let me share this. That is my bad, guys. Zoom, where is Zoom? Okay, here we go. Okay, sharing second screen. Okay. So Tim, did you guys not see that video either?
Video came through fine, and then you came back,
Oh
and
yeah,
then when
okay,
you
got
went
it.
back to your screen, we missed
Got
it.
it. Okay,
So
sweet.
yeah, but we're on it
That
now.
would be really awkward just sitting there for 1 minute, like, what is this guy doing? Okay,
No, we got you
so
now.
all right, sweet. So this is what I was sharing about Spotify numbers. Like this is my page. All my music is under DJ Taz Rashid. And yeah, thank you, Tim, for bringing that to my attention. So that's my Spotify page. You can see, I've got some decent numbers up there, and followers and stuff like that. But as I was sharing, like getting into music, like that's me playing piano. Thank God again, my parents took me to classes, and one of the great things I'm grateful for right now are um, that my parents took me to music theory classes. So I had a teacher, this piano teacher. She was like adamant about me learning music theory, and at the time I was like, this stuff is boring. I don't want to really learn. Like, what do I need to, relative minor and dominant seven? And I am so grateful I did that because now, because I have that knowledge since childhood, I can just write music. Like I can write like multiple songs a day if I wanted to easily, and understanding the formula. So if you're in theory classes and you're taking music, like just know that if you're going to become a musician, like just knowing that it's not always fun, but it's like super, super important. Um, if you're going to be writing music for yourself or companies and things like that. So, I came to America in 1990. All right. I didn't always have the dream of becoming a musician. That was just like a side gig. I come from a Southeast Asian background. I'm from Bangladesh originally, but when I came to America, I had the American dream in at hand. And that was a whole idea that like, oh, I need to make a lot of money. I need to live in a house with a white picket fence. This is stuff that was just like taught to me. I didn't even real know if it was true or not or whatever, but it was just like, this is what I have to do and subscribe by. I need to work for a big businessman, and and interestingly enough, like I actually went to school for that. I went to Miami of Ohio, and I had a major in marketing, organizational leadership, and also had a minor in entrepreneurship. And at that time I was definitely never thinking like, oh my god, I'm going to go become a musician and a music producer and be in business for myself. But I'm so, again, right now I'm grateful that like I had that upbringing in college of business, because that's helped me out tremendously. But I didn't go the music route, as I said. I went the business route, and I went all over the place. When I graduated in 2006, I worked for hotels, I worked in real estate, but realistically, all those glorious dreams, it more felt like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, kind of like a 90s film. It more felt like it was like a cubicle lifestyle, like it was just like, oh my god, like get me out of here, I do not like this 9 to 5. And the reason I'm showing you this is just like, yes, it's kind of funny, but like it really was our experience. Like it was just like, work the 9 to 5 and get the f out of there as quickly as possible. We just look forward to Friday 5 o'clock for the weekend. And I think like the main reason back then for this kind of feeling was that I didn't have really a strong sense of purpose around what I wanted to do and become. Thank God I was playing still music. Like I was playing in a rock band on the side. I played bass and guitar. This is a picture of a band called Verona Red that I was part of, like 2000, I think 7 to like 2009. But it was fun. It was the kind of whole sex, drugs, rock and roll kind of lifestyle. And, I enjoyed it thoroughly. And, I, it was that experience I needed to have to realize what I wanted to like shift out of into my world, which I'll share more about. So I was doing this while I was like working in sales and business. And I was big time in sales, like sales and marketing. At that time, I was working for a copier sales company. Okay. I used to sell those big copiers, that you see at like Kinko's and whatever, copy shops that you're like making copies. I was going around Chicago selling these from business to business, and it was just like not fun. It was just like completely, I felt like a zombie, to be honest with you. And, I just found some of these pictures on the internet, like, and it's true. Like at the end of the month, sometimes you either look like this guy, just as a picture of Jack Nicholson, you're just like dazed and not really know what's going on. Like feel like you just got bulldozed, and it's all about the numbers and this pressure. Or you felt like this, you're just like, oh God, like nothing just came through. And while all this was happening to me, like the end of 2000, from 2006 to 2000, like I would say like 9, 10, I really started questioning like, what is going on in my life? Like, what am I actually doing? Like I was just like, okay, I'm 24, whatever years old at that time, 23 years old. I prescribed to all these rules and an idea of what I needed to become, in my life. And I was working, I was doing it, I was like doing like the equation or whatever you want to call it, the dream life. Like you gotta, go to school, did that, you gotta get a job. I had all these like big jobs, little jobs, and and but I was just like not happy. And the word really was not just happy, it was I wasn't fulfilled. And that's a great word I want you to remember, is fulfillment of your life. Like, are you genuinely enjoying or happy doing what you're doing? And back then I could not answer that. I was like, I don't even know. I can't even say yes or no. I don't even know what I'm really actually doing. I'm just like bouncing around from job to job, like trying to figure out like what I need to do. This led me to just really kind of like become depressed. And it's kind of, not to get you guys down, it's just like depressed in a way where I wasn't like depressed on the outside. I was really kind of depressed on the inside. Like I didn't really show it, but I knew I was, because I was partying super hard. I was just trying to escape my reality all the time. And this led me to like start looking the other way, meaning like I started like thinking completely outside of my current, that situation that I had currently, which was I was living in the city, hitting up clubs, playing in rock bands, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and then working like a corporate job kind of thing as well. And I was just like, there's got to be more to this. So I actually started looking inward, and started meditating, and like started really questioning my like life journey and what I was doing. And then, it while all this was happening, um, I got let go from my job, and I got let go from a couple jobs actually. That's why I was like bouncing around. And those are some of the best things that happened when I started like getting fired, because it was like I felt like, yes, I wasn't doing a good job at whatever job I was at. That's obvious reason because I got fired. But it was also like the way of like your life or whatever energy telling you that like, hey, you got to do something else. Like you better find something that you really want to do. And so like I said, I started, as I was meditating, like I started questioning like, what is it truly that I want to do? So I started playing more music instruments, like playing more indigenous, like world instruments, percussion, guitar, just getting into it. And for me back then, because I was kind of on a spiritual journey, I was like on this quest to like, I was on this quest to really find happiness at the end of the day. Like if you were like, hey, what were you trying to do with your life? I was like, I was trying to find happiness. And I realized like music makes me happy. Like music is the one thing that truly makes my soul sing, in a way. Like I just did, it never felt like it was work, and most of you are in the music business, or so you love music. Like that's why most of you are going to, this university and taking these programs, or maybe even attending this class right now. So around 2011, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Matrix, another 90s reference. I've got a lot of 90s reference, shows you how old I am. But there was this movie Matrix where like, this guy Neo just kind of had this like awakening, like he just saw everything, and I felt like I kind of had that in 2011 where I was just like, holy crap, I gotta do I gotta do music full time. I don't know how or what I'm gonna do, but I gotta do it. So really, again, another Matrix reference. There was a scene where this guy Morpheus, who's kind of like Neo's like, leader, or like he was kind of like job shadowing Morpheus because he had a role to play. And Morpheus gave him this option: you take a red pill or blue pill. Like red pill, you go down the rabbit hole, meaning like you go into the unknown. You don't know really what's going to happen, but you gotta you gotta feel into your spirit, your calling, as they say, and you gotta do it. And for me, that was obviously the music world, but I didn't have all my answers. I didn't know what I was going to fully do. The other option was, go back into the corporate world, try to figure things out that way. I'd already kind of done that. And I was kind of sick of that world. Like it was just like, here's something that's really interesting is that, whatever company I worked for, I would always look at like the top leaders of those companies, like the big honcho, like, okay, this is the big boss. How is their life? Like, what does their life look like? Like, would I want, if I were the leader of this company or like the top person, would I be happy in that position? And interestingly enough, most of these people with the company that I work with, like I would look at my boss and my boss's boss and their boss, and I would look at their lifestyle and I would just be like, man, when I'm like 45 or 50, I don't know if I would want to be like that guy or that girl. I wouldn't want to have that kind of lifestyle. And like, so I kept like asking myself this question wherever I would end up. And like, I was just like not finding like a role. So I was just like, man, I think I need to create my own role and my own life. I'm not sure what that fully looks like, but I need to do it. So obviously I took the red pill and went down that rabbit hole of creativity into music. I taught myself how to DJ because I was playing a lot of music in Chicago with these events that my wife and I were doing for these small communities. We would actually hold meditation groups, right? Because we were on this like quest for spirituality, and we would hold these like kind of like quiet reflective time, if you've ever done a meditation or heard of it. So we would run these, but afterwards people would stick around and just hang out because it's like community, 30, 50 people, whatever, they would hang out. And I would always like play music, and they would be like, why don't you play more music? And and we could all have like a dance party, and like you could like maybe DJ or something. So this is like 2011, 2012. So I just taught myself how to DJ, YouTube videos, whatever, bought myself a little mixer. I play some like live drums. And I'll have to say, like, I had so much fun. And I realized that it was all about mindset, success. Like, it was really about like how I was going to lead on this path of the unknown with a strong, like super strong mind, And I just made that decision. I was like, you know what? I'm going to really own it up and just like explore my options, and I'm going to learn from whoever is doing it. So this was one of the first lessons, if I can share, is like whatever field you go into, you got to be you've got to be learning constantly. And one of the great things that I did back in 2011 for myself of this unknown path was I found all the people who was kind of doing what I wanted to do, which was like playing music at these kind of spiritual events, DJing. So I would just like hit them up because I would attend their events, and I would just be like, hey, like, my name is Taz Rashid. I'm just like learning how to DJ, and I really don't know what I'm doing, and I'm trying to figure it out. Would you love to meet for a cup of coffee? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Or like, can I buy you lunch? So like their time is obviously important. Everyone's time is important, but you're asking them a favor in a way where you're trying to like, I was trying to meet with them, right? I'll just speak in the my perspective. I was trying to meet with them to like pick their brain a little bit, share about my vision or what I'm trying to do, and see if they have any good feedback because they've been doing this for years. So I met with like a lot of different people around Chicago, and interestingly enough, I started like working with these people, they were just like, wow, this guy is like a, young dude who's like excited about this thing and maybe we can work together. So as I was interviewing these people for really myself, it wasn't like I had a podcast or I was writing a book or something like that. I was just like trying to gather some information to be like, all right, how do I need to navigate through this? And some of them were music producers. Most of them were just like DJs, like throwing parties, in Chicago. And I started like meeting with them, and I was I was working with them, which was great. I'm gonna go off topic here for a second. This is just part of my slide present. This is my wife and me. This is our home in Chicago. And then this is our 2-year-old Sophia. She's new in the picture. So I'm showing this right now because once you start having a family, things get really real, meaning like your vision or whatever you're working with become even more ignited because at the end of the day, you got to make the income to support a family. So all this passion work is really great, and it needs to pay the bills. If I can be really open and honest with you, so you got to figure out the business, and we'll talk more deeper about that in some of the other in class 2 and class 3. But that's where all this is gearing towards, is the music business. And you notice like the word business is in there, and most musicians are like, I don't want to really talk about that as much, but like I'm telling you right now, like if you want to make this a reality for yourself, that's 50% of it. There's 50% is music, 50% is the business. And if you want to make it not a hobby, and if you want to make it a lifelong career path, that's at least what I've learned. So okay, so back to the story of like, okay, so I was doing all these events in Chicago and throwing them, and it was super fun. Like I was having a good time, but I wasn't still sure, like, is this my path? And like, this is what I have to do full time, because I was like scrambling for money at the time. Like I would make a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, somehow, things would work out where I could pay our rent, and I didn't have a kid yet. It was just my wife and I, and we were just like paying rent and like living comfortably. It wasn't like we were in poverty, but like we weren't rich or anything like that, but we were just like getting by, let's just say, paycheck by paycheck, as you've heard that. And so as I was doing these events, interesting thing happened. You saw that first video, a bunch of yoga people and people doing yoga. So in Chicago, my wife was in a yoga training. Okay, she was training to become a yoga teacher, and she put me in touch with their kind of like top teacher, and be like, hey, she was like telling them like my husband DJs, and maybe he could like DJ in one of your guys' yoga classes. It seemed we had seen it before, because we had been to a couple festivals where there was like a DJ and a yoga class, and I was like, well, I'm kind of in this world of mindfulness and people meditating, and and trying to be like have better lives, really. Like that's how I would categorize like yoga meditation people who are like looking inward and having an exercise practice and meditation where they can like fall deeper into their creative path and their higher calling, and also live like a healthy life. And so I was like, that's the kind of world I want to work with. Like I didn't want to be around a ton of drugs and alcohol, and I just wanted to live a more like a cleaner life, because I've been in the whole like crazy drugs and alcohol world for years, and it wasn't, it was just not a satisfying feeling. Like, yes, there were satisfying parts of it, but it wasn't like a long term, like this is what I want to do. So I wanted to get out of that world, and I knew that that's not the world I wanted to go into. So I was like, maybe I'll create something in this world. So I started saying yes to these opportunities, and all of a sudden I started getting like requests by different yoga studios and events around, mainly around Chicago and the Midwest. And so one of my lessons here is that like it doesn't matter what like city you live in, or where you are, or how small the city is, and where you are, or what you're doing, whatever world you go into, you got to get started somewhere. I mean, I started at zero, obviously, like just like everybody out there, like most people out there start at zero. Some people are lucky and they get like label or whatever, and then they're promoting the, but like I don't have a label. I'm completely independent, done everything independently without a manager, and booking everything myself. And we'll talk more about booking and all that in the next one, the next class. But so I was just like, okay, cool, like I can do these events, and I'm in the north side of Chicago, so it wasn't like a huge city. It was more like suburbs, but I would call that like a small pond. So like I was starting to become like a big fish in a small pond. And like in the music world, or like if you're in a special niche of like, I don't know, whatever like you go into, like it's really great to rock your scene. A lot of times musicians ask me like, hey, how do I get to this state, like how do I get there? It's just like, I'm like, don't worry about traveling the world just yet, like rock your city, like rock your block, like as they say, like become super well known, and wherever you are living, your community, earn that respect, earn that street credit, because street credit is great. Street credit, as I say, like just become like an awesome force of, whether you're a DJ or a musician, or you book gigs, or you're a manager, anything you are trying to become right now, or you're in school for, whatever it is, you got to rock it at some, whatever, in a small level, because you will master what you're doing, and you will learn so much about yourself and your craft when you're doing it at that community level. You learn about people, you learn about working with teams, working with other musicians. If you're a DJ or musician, you may be on the bill with other musicians. How do you deal with egos? Like all this stuff that comes up, it's super important, because that stuff is going to be around forever. Okay. I still deal with egos, I still deal with groups of people. I still deal with like all those similar things that I was dealing with on a smaller level. I'm just dealing with now on a smaller level and larger level. I work with all kinds of musicians and different groups and organizations, and it doesn't matter like the size of the group or company I work with. I work with a lot of different people. And so understanding human psyche and how to work with different personalities is going to be so important in your journey, as well, in anyone's journey, but especially in a journey when you don't have a 9 to 5 and you're in a creative path. You will deal with all kinds of different people. So having that spiritual kind of like background, I felt like it helped me so much. Just knowing how to deal with people, and knowing how to deal with different people's egos and whatnot. And I learned so much about myself in that process. Excuse me. having some little delicious coffee here in the morning. Um, yeah. So that was a great thing. Like I just started saying yes to all these opportunities, and while going back to the story of like becoming a big fish in a small pond, like while doing that, I definitely started catching the ear, and attention of other national festivals and events that were happening. Okay, so this is something that was amazing because when you make a big enough splash in your own pond, people will notice. So a lot of teachers or a lot of different artists ask me like, how do I get noticed? I'm like, make a huge splash in your pond, people will notice. Okay, and I'm also personally the type of individual. This is my makeup. Other people, there's other people that can do it differently and have done it differently. I'm not the kind of person personally that reaches out to organizations or festivals and say, hey, you need to book me. Like I personally don't do that. um that is a way to go, absolutely, to have a booking agency and like hit up like different festivals. And like for a lot of you out there, that will be the way to get gigs. You will have to go out there and apply and put in an application. And then there's going to be a lot of you who are going to be rocking it, and you'll get you'll get like an email from a booking person or a festival or someone saying, hey, we see what you're doing on social media and we really love what you're doing. Would you be interested in playing at our event or at our festival? um, can we jump on a call on top? That's the route I've been on from kind of like the get-go. And absolutely, yes, I definitely have reached out to some local events and things here and there, more on a partnership level. And but I always remember I tried like not to just being like, hey, I want to play your event. What do I do to get booked, kind of thing. And I'll tell you the reason why. This is actually very important. Why I felt this to be a very important thing, at least in my experience. Okay, um, I I I felt that whenever I actually did reach out to an organization or a group or something and says, "Hey, book me," I would always like get paid less, or my value would not be felt as much when I reached out to like some sort of an organization. And this is like a trend that I noticed, later when I actually became aware of it. Okay, so diff and this is again not to say that one is good or the other. This is how I need to roll in my life. There are people out there who can rock the action of reaching out to organizations, being like, hey, I am so and so, I'm a musician, I play guitar, you got to book me at these gigs. And that could totally work for you in a really good way. And this realization came to me through this program I did called the Human Design System. Again, this is part of my spiritual journey. I'm sharing it with you. But this process of learning the Human Design System told me that like my makeup and my way of rocking it is by being invited into situations. Okay, like being invited into the party rather than like crashing the party or just going to be like, yo, I'm so and so, you got to book me, I got to play your gig. But there are people out there who their human design system is that they need to go and just like walk into the party and kind of be known and seen. And that works for them. So for me, what I noticed was when I just like jumped into situations that I was not valued as much as a DJ or a musician, and that resulted directly into how much I was being compensated or paid. And again, as the music business, like that was very important. So these festivals like Wanderlust that I was telling you about, that Tim and I worked at, like I was invited into those situations. Thank God, like when I look back at it, I was like, oh my God, like actually one of the founders of Wanderlust like emailed me. This is the yoga fest. Actually, there's a picture of me right there. This is in Vermont. Okay, so this is in Vermont in Stratton. This picture that you guys are seeing
I
right
thought so.
there. Yeah,
Is that Gina Caputo?
That is Gina Caputo,
Nice.
Tim. And that's me in the middle there. This is actually one of my first festivals that I did back in 2015, I think. There's like probably like, I don't know, 600-700 people there. They're all dancing actually in the middle of a yoga class. We were doing a Grateful Dead themed yoga class. I mean, it was super fun.
I still remember this class. That was an amazing class. So
It's
good.
so much fun. Thanks, Tim. So much fun. And like I show this picture because like, when most people think of yoga and meditation, yes, it's a serious practice. It's like an inward journey and whatnot, but it can also be like celebratory and fun. And like, there's a lot of, enjoyment that can happen for yourself. And then of course there's a community around you. Like people just love being with each other, and this is why festivals are great, and that's why I miss festivals more than ever right now. Just that human connection, being able to connect with friends, fans, whoever, supporters, just people like in general, like at the events. And these events just like gave me so much life. It gave me so much deeper purpose into what I was doing. So I share this picture because I love the celebratory nature that came with my line of work. So a lot of creativity, in that. And so from there, getting the attention to a lot of these festivals, being invited, I started realizing that like, wow, like this is a way to go. And I need to start booking gigs. So I started booking a lot of gigs, and we're going to get in the second class, we're going to talk about my whole process of how I booked like 80-90 festivals and events throughout 20 from 20 like 15 to like 2019. Every year I was like doing a lot of events. 2020, obviously I wasn't doing any live events in person because of the pandemic. Like nobody was really. I worked right up till the end, like in end of March. I did a bunch of events, and then boom, it was just like completely over. I had a whole tour booked, and like, oh man, it just like it wasn't happening. So in class 2, I'm going to talk about how I ended up doing over 130, I think over like around like 140 online events. And it sounds crazy, but I did 140 like online events on Zoom with communities all over the world. And I got paid for it. And it was amazing. I had to work extra hard because I wasn't being paid as well I was on festivals. But then again, I didn't have to fly around. I didn't have to travel through airports and buses and this and that. Like I just had to go into my, like if you look behind me, I'll just share this. If you look behind me on, hold on, I'm going to show you guys this real quick. If you look behind me right there, that's actually my DJ booth. Okay, that's where I perform from majority of the time. I produce music up here, and that's my stage right there. And so I'm in Florida right now, so I've been performing like this since January, since I've been in this house. But overall, I even in my home in Chicago, I had um I had a similar situation where I was, producing in my room and then DJing like 2-3 events a week, um in the same room, and like I didn't have to go anywhere. Okay, so I just it was kind of interesting. Anyways, so and I'm going to talk about that as well. Like, and it became a successful year, maybe even more successful than a year before in 2019, which is crazy to think about because I just did my taxes, so I saw what kind of income I made. But it's possible. Okay, you just have to really get creative. All right, and I love that because this slide is the next slide. Is that so? Creativity is a wild mind and a disciplined eye. I this is not some quote that I live by. I just found this quote the other day, and I was like, oh, that's actually great because I live like that, but I never saw it like on paper. Like for us creative people, sometimes and a lot of times our mind is a mile a minute, meaning like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. I should collaborate with this person, and like, oh, I should go on tour here, and I need to look into this. Oh, what's this organization doing? What's he or she doing? Oh my God, this DJ is doing something. You get the point. There are a lot of ideas, but discipline is key. Okay. Like discipline is extremely important because you need to have a system for yourself, and you have, I should say, a lot of projects, and I'm the manager of my projects. It's not like I have a team. I do things myself. I have some team members, some people that like master my songs and things like that. And I used to have a graphic designer, but I do it all myself. It's like you teach yourself how to do certain things. Of course, you can like outsource a ton of things, and I've outsourced, different kinds of jobs that I didn't really want to do. Like whatever it is. Like I'll give you an example. Like I would go to a gig, and 100 people would give me their emails to be on my newsletter, right, and stay in touch with me when I have new music. So a lot of times they would like write it down, right, in a clipboard, like their name, like Mark Johnson, and they would put their email. I don't want to. I have to type. Someone has to type that up, right? That could take me 2 hours to like type up. I'm not the fastest typer, so I would hire someone to do that on like Fiverr or like virtual assistants, and you pay them like an hourly rate, what they're happy with, and they will help you out. So there's ways around that, and I've used virtual assistants my whole life. Well, I shouldn't say my whole life, since I started this path, which is like 2012ish. That has sped things up for me. So okay, so with creativity, you need discipline. So for a lot of you right now, like it's just like, hey, how does this kind of work with where we're at right now? I would say right now, regardless of what year you are in school, I would start like assisting somebody, or like shadowing or job shadow. This is commonly an idea that a lot of people have. Like if you're some sort of an assistant, you're paid almost nothing and required to do mostly everything. And that can be absolutely true. But things like internships and job shadow, it's super, I personally feel it's super important as you are getting deeper into your um craft. And like don't count on any jobs after an internship. Like that's just something you just have to, from my experience, like an internship is just that. It's really an experience. Okay, good or bad, I don't know. Like a lot of people, oh, it's going to be a great experience. It can be, it could be horrible, but it's also your perspective and how you deal with it. But I would say start shadowing or working with someone that knows more than you. It doesn't necessarily even have to be another teacher or a big company or an organization. It just needs to be someone that knows more than you about an area that you want to go into. Okay. So an example for me would be, I would want to work with someone. When I was back in 2013, 2014, I wasn't really producing as much music. So I was actually working with another producer based out of Ibiza, Spain, Ibiza, however you want to say it. His name was Ing Marlowe, and he was a seasoned producer. Like he had been producing music for decades, and I was a musician. So him and I worked together, and I would send him tracks and like my parts playing it on the guitar or keyboard, and he would help produce most of the music. And I would also produce music, but he was like, I was like learning from working with someone that knew a lot more than I did at the time. So I invite you to start like either interning or looking into what it is that you really want to do, and work. It's like find someone, like they may be in your school. You may be a freshman and they may be a junior. I don't know. So you got to kind of like explore your surroundings around like what it is that you gotta like look into, and who can you shadow. It could be Tim. I don't know, maybe Tim needs an assistant, but um like he has a lot, like being on the road with Tim, like I saw so many of his students working for Wanderlust. It was amazing to see that. I was like, wow, these guys are getting, they're working, B, they're Tim's students, so they're working with their teacher directly, and see, like they're having one of the most amazing experience because they're in the field helping other musicians. Most of them were like tech students, like working in sound. Some were actually DJs and stuff, but like most of them were like doing sound or sound mixing. They were engineering like bands and things like that. And it was great because I was like, wow, like these guys are getting the most awesome experience being on the road, earning an income while being in school at the same time. And that was just really cool to see that. So obviously, you know as I said, like I'm a one man kind of show as far as like me being like doing a lot of different things. So obviously the word is multimedia. Like you got to start like learning what you need to do, again, if you're going to be a musician or an artist, like there are many aspects that you just have to learn about the music business, and we're going to go deeper into this in class 2 and class 3, because there's so many nitty gritty stuff on what means to be a digital musician right now, especially so right now where people aren't touring as much. There's a lot of money to be made because it's a streaming world, and there's many different ways to make money, and a lot of people don't even know about, like, oh wow, like I can write music for a licensing company, or I can write music for a commercial, or like I could do this. Like, yes, gigs are great as far as like playing live events, but there's a lot of, if you were to look at like a pie chart, gigs is one like big slice of the let's call it a pizza. It's a big slice, but there's all these other slices that may not seem as fun, but like if you like learn about it, you don't have to do all of it, but like some of it, and then you're like earning income from these royalties from this movie that you did or this TV show. So a lot of you are, again, I don't know what, if you're a freshman or senior or super senior or whatever, grad student, but you're going to learn how to do a lot of things. That's the thing. Like you're going to be doing a lot of things, and majority of all those things that you're learning, you're going to be able to charge people for. Okay. And a lot of times people just do things without realizing that you can charge people for that. So these are things we'll talk more about in class 2, and like how can you monetize all your knowledge. Okay. And I found this picture. It's just like, people are, nowadays, like people change jobs all the time. All right. It's a very common thing, and I don't know when this slide was made. I just saw it. Like, this is a picture from the movie Back to the Future, if you've ever seen that, an 80s film. But like, back in the day, like 60s, 70s, 80s, everyone, most people work like one or two different jobs their whole life. Man, I've probably had like eight, I don't even know, 7 or 8 different jobs before I started like going down that rabbit hole, taking the red pill. And even after that, I've worked with so many different groups of people, organizations. So yes, I hired myself. I always say, like, I basically hired myself and started working for my own company. And but I've worked with so many different groups, and it continues to evolve like that. So main thing right now, I would say, is like getting the experience is extremely important. Um, and so it doesn't matter what it looks like. Start reaching out to folks that know more than you. Hey, what are you doing? What have you learned? Almost like bug them, like take them out for that, cup of coffee or a beer or whatever it is. Like, have some fun with that, because like you're gonna learn something. You're gonna learn a lot of things with that, especially being in school. Like, one thing I wish I knew, like when I went back, is like when I was back in school, like I was you're surrounded by so much knowledge and education and other kids who are, and teachers that are like, that know so much more than you. And I personally feel like I didn't take as much advantage of that, when I was in college. But whatever, I'm here now doing my thing. But like, if I could go back and tell myself something like that, I would say, hey, take advantage of all these people that you're around, because they're all everyone's trying to rock it, whatever that they're in. So it's like, stay in touch with these people, and shadow them, work with them, share ideas, and I actually saw this as a musician. Like, a lot of people say, do it for the exposure. Exposure gigs are great, but don't forget that paid gigs are even better. And no matter where you are, regardless of what the event is, you can definitely charge something almost all the time. In class 2, we're going to talk about paid gigs versus, if there is no money, what else can they do? Because there's a lot of other ways currency can be exchanged that's not actually just money. And I'm not talking about Bitcoin, even though that's great. I'm talking about like social currency, sharing of information, emails, promoting you in certain ways. So that's a really super high secret as far as like a lot of people say, oh, there's no money in this gig, I don't want to do it. It's like, well, wait, they may not have money to pay you, but if you do it, so say you're charging $500, what else can they offer in that value? You know, so there's some ways to go around that. Um, and yeah, so we're gonna dive deep into some of these things in class 2 and class 3 about how to work with other musicians, um, contracts, you know, getting license deals. And I'm really just going to be there to answer any questions as well. But I'm going to share with you what I've learned along this process, and what's really working for me. That's really what I can share. I mean, if you go on YouTube and wherever, there are probably a million videos on different artists, producers telling you like, hey, this is what works, what doesn't work. I don't have a giant platform or any kind of platform really like that to be like telling people, but I can share with you an honest experience that I've had and what's worked for me in my journey. And there's definitely something to that. So I'm super grateful that, you know, Tim asked me to be a part of this series. And so I think we'll take maybe a few questions, Tim, like.
Absolutely. Thanks, Taz. What a great presentation. The first comment was your visuals are great. I mean, you had me in stitches over here for sure. It was a fantastic presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Your business acumen doesn't go far, or didn't go far, I should say.
No, I tried it though. You know, if everyone looks back and say, hey, you went to school for marketing and this and that, I'm like, you know what? Okay, so I didn't go into this, but I went. First job was working for the Hyatt hotels. Okay. Corporate management trainee. Like it was an esteemed thing, like in sales, like wearing like super nice suits and pressed shirts and like the ho, you know, like it was awesome at that time, but it just wasn't for me. I went to Cleveland, Ohio, and then Chicago. And then I got into real estate. Crazy. I got fired and I went to real estate and the market crashed. I got my license. I did everything. Didn't work out, and I sold copiers and this and that. So it's like,
yep,
I tried.
You got to keep going.
I did it, you know.
That's a perfect segue into this question here. Question from Max. He says, "Is there anything specific that you said to yourself to keep you encouraged through the tough times and keep you focused on your future? Any specific thoughts that you kept in mind?"
That's a great question, Max. Thank you. Yeah, to be fully honest, there was a lot of trust in the process, you know, especially when I took that red pill. And just for clarity, if you haven't seen The Matrix, there wasn't actually a real pill that I took or something like that. It was
metaphorical.
Yeah. What's this pill he's talking about, man? Is this all? Can you get it?
It's illegal now. Yeah, you're all part
get
of
it
the
with
system.
Bitcoin.
Sorry.
You know, give me 2 Bitcoins, I'll give you a red pill. It's like, what? Okay. So yes, I had this deep connection with my mission and passion when I realized what it was. And that mission and passion I realized in 2011, and I wrote it down. So this is some words of wisdom. When you figure out like, hey, this is my calling, or this is what I'm here to be. And my calling, I realized, was to awaken humanity with music. Okay, sounds a little bit whoa, and I didn't even know how that was going to happen in 2011, but that's the message that came to me from my inner self or my conscious, was that I need to awaken humanity with music, and I wrote it down. So one of the most powerful things you can do is when you realize your thing was to write down your mission or passion, because when you physically do that, not just even to type it, like write it down on a piece of paper. I know like writing is crazy these days, like what is writing? But I wrote it down and it started becoming alive. So whenever I would feel kind of like there was like tough times, I would meditate on this vision that I had and this mission of like how I was going to actually do that as if it was actually happening in my life. And what I mean by that is that I would get into like either whether it's journaling or just like closing my eyes and thinking about it, I would actually see myself doing what I'm doing. And that just made me feel really good. Like it was just like this experience where I like knew like, okay, things are really tough right now. I don't have a ton of money in the bank account. What can I do? Of course, there's a lot of physical things that I did, like reaching out to people and talking to them and trying to, get more gigs and like doing my own events and things like that. Those things were happening, but on the inner world, which is what you're asking, Tim, or I'm sorry, Max, how was I keeping myself encouraged? I would do a lot of these inward practices. So if I could encourage you guys to look into that, there is a wealth of, there's this like a treasure chest of gold within all of us. Every one of us that's on this call, whoever's watching, everybody here has this like treasure that's within you that you can tap into in your inside internal world that most of us are not even aware of. So I really went into that and explored deeper meditations, these processes, and that just made me feel so good that I started attracting the right situations into my life and bringing them, like you started becoming like a magnet for what it is you want to create. So yeah, hopefully that didn't get too weird for you, Max, but like start looking inward, start reflecting, guided meditations, these things. And we can talk more about that in class 2, class 3. Absolutely. I'm happy to go deeper into that.
That's a great answer. Great answer. I am a firm believer in that myself. You have to fix yourself before you can fix anything else, right?
Oh yeah.
So
it's like watching a movie with a broken lens, or like, if you're at a movie theater and, you're watching the movie, but you're seeing it on the screen, right? But it's a little blurry. If you go up to that screen and wipe it, it's not going to change. You got to change the lens, right? And so these are one of the, like a story, a metaphor. It's like, you got to change the way you're seeing your reality if you want it to look different for yourself. And that's the way your perception, and perspective and how you're seeing it. So,
I think that's a great note to end on there, Taz. That's a beautiful thought and a really nice metaphor. We are very much looking forward to the next 2 pieces of your class. The next one, everybody, is focused on the business, how to get gigs, create collaborations, and long-term success. So that's right in the pocket of what we're doing here in the music business program. So it's really exciting.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everybody. Yeah, if you feel like you have a friend who may benefit from, attending, like definitely encourage them, ask them to join up. I think this is going to live on YouTube or something.
Yes, indeed.
Sweet.
Yep.
So we can share it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, thanks again for your time, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye,
Take
guys.
care. Bye-bye.